How do I know they're lesbian?
We knew that they were gay, yeah, sure. I mean, nobody said anything about it. This was 1947. Let's not forget that.
You know what's interesting? I've never gotten the comment, how do you know they're straight? So I get this question a lot, and believe it or not, I don't specifically try to watch old gay movies, most of the time, but I do try and watch old great movies, and a lot of them happen to be really gay. And the reason I highlight that in my channel is that I think representation is very cool.
It's amazing how, if you're a gay audience and you're accustomed to crumbs, how you will watch an entire movie just to see somebody wear an outfit that you think means that they're a homosexual. The whole movie can be a dud, but you're just sitting there waiting for Joan Crawford to put on her black cowboy shirt again.
And I hear a lot, from younger viewers especially, that they had no idea that there was this much queer stuff in old movies.
Rebecca is one of the movies in which the word homosexuality or lesbianism is never uttered. But there's this one scene that really stands out for a gay audience, and that is Rebecca is dead. She was the beautiful woman who is mysteriously not on the scene any longer. And her former housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, is obsessed with her, even after her death. She opens the underwear drawer. It's so sensuous. Look.
So I try to highlight it in a compelling way, because if I connect with a movie, if nothing else, they make me personally feel less alone. When I was a kid and saw Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love, where he's this nonverbal guy with a loud family that he wants to lash out at and he can't understand his emotions, that movie made me feel so much less lonely. And on a core level, no matter how sad a movie makes me, and I want movies to devastate me, I always feel less alone if I connect with it, like there's someone out there who's been through what I've been through, and I think that's really valuable. To your point though, you can absolutely think of these people as actual sisters and aunts, like they're ostensibly portrayed in the movie. Movies get to be any interpretation, and if there are a couple of loving and charitable sisters who decided to live together as friends out there, I want them to have representation too, and I'm distinctly not saying that my interpretation is the only correct one. I don't believe in the term media literacy. I don't think there's illiterate or literate readings of a movie. There's only how it affects you, which is what filmmakers want to happen by and large, which you can see more of in my video on director intent, or lack thereof.
It doesn't matter what I say. Zip.
But the other reason I see a lot of subtext is because there was a lot of queer filmmakers and actors in this era of Hollywood, and there was an entire cinematic language that developed that allowed them to have representation implicitly instead of explicitly, because you weren't allowed to show gay stuff on screen.
Well, you got very good at projecting subtext without saying a word about what you were doing. Like writing for Pravda. You did learn how to write between the lines, a photograph between the lines. You do it with a look or something.
And I have a theory on this that I don't think I'm the first to say, that I think this language helped them make better movies because of the craft and specific thought that they had to put in to get past the censors. One of the things that I generally like about this era of American movies is how more generally indirect it is, even when you think it's being extremely direct. Like today, I feel like a lot of movies tell you what's going on, then they tell you it again, and they try and only communicate one point. But in classic Hollywood, even when things did over-the-top melodrama, often there were much deeper things that they were putting in between the lines. Like in Christopher Strong, on the surface, it's about Katharine Hepburn being the mistress of a wealthy aristocrat in 1930s Britain, but it's actually a fascinating exploration of gender roles and being an ally with another woman even though you're both exploited, and how gender is a performance. And this is like 60 years before Judith Butler, but it's playing in the same sandbox and it's incredible. Dorothy Arzner, the director of the movie and the only woman director in Hollywood in the 30s, would not have been allowed to write a movie that explicitly talked about those themes. So often they had to write between the lines and be extremely specific about camera placement or dialogue and towing the lines of what they actually could put in movies. In this scene in Christopher Strong, even though these women are friends, on the surface, scenes like this were the only ways that lesbians got to see women embracing and being close emotionally, something that Arzner, who was a lesbian, and Hepburn, who was bisexual, were well aware of and who most likely talked about it in secret, but had to keep it even secret from their bosses at the studio. So people like Arzner and Hepburn and James Whale, director of The Invisible Man and Bride of Frankenstein, and Laird Krieger and Clifton Webb and Charles Laughton and James Dean and so many others had to construct films very, very, very carefully. They had to construct highly specific and planned camera movement, sound, scene blocking, writing, editing, and so on, because they were wanting to sneak representation and deeper themes into these movies and had to get them past the censors.
You know, the guys who ran that code weren't rocket scientists. They missed a lot of stuff. And if a director was subtle enough and clever enough, they got around it.
And I think this, in a strange and tragic way, made a lot of these movies some of the best movies of the era. They had to be so planned and thought about that I think that bled into other aspects of their production. And that meant that they were more likely to be seen and well-reviewed and talked about and preserved so that I could watch them 80 years later and try and help make sure that their artistic genius and fight in making sure that there was representation is not lost on modern audiences, if they want to look for it. And hopefully my silly little videos do three things. One, I hope people enjoy them. Two, I hope they help some lonely queer person or other person feel a little less lonely because now they can see themselves in a movie from 1944, especially when there are some really loud morons that want us to return to how some of society was in 1944. And three, I want to remind those morons that there was never a time in which other people didn't exist, and if they're going to say the wall's going to get even taller when there's pushback against them, then guess what? The movies are going to get 50 times gayer.